Quick greetings. Welcome to another video. This is the first video since posting my public notice to YouTube, the reading of my public notice. And there have been some, you know, newer developments. I did hear back from one of the agencies that I sent my package to. Um, I'm going to paraphrase what was said in the letter. Uh, the thing is, here's the thing. Indians have to speak. Indians have to speak. They cannot be intimidated. The life of your laws depend on it, if that makes sense. The life of the law you stand on depends on your mouth. Depends on your ability, the freedom you have to speak. Now, we've watched in every way how the system discriminates against those who bear the description of the original Indians of the Americas. Now, we have, instances where they're describing what we look like, and then next thing you know, you have a government that designates you as Black, and that's the end of that. It's not about your original standing. It's about a new caste system label that this is the thing about this system, y'all. It charms you into a trap. If you have the best example we often use, if you have a constitution that says absolutely nothing about Black people, but you have a whole movement, a whole media campaign that keeps describing you as Black, that means there's a push. They're taking an initiative in misleading you. So you watch the television and all you see or hear when referred to people that look like you is this term Black, Negro, color, right? So this system, it is so implicated on so many levels because it leads you to a trap. It doesn't just trap you. It does not just trap you. And this is what is so dangerous about a government system like this. And if Indians don't call it out, they get to keep doing it. You're the only victims of this. So this code that Indians have, a video like this is already being uh, limited by the corporation. And I decided, we call YouTube out. A lot of us YouTubers, we are calling YouTube out. It's not YouTube. It is the quote unquote regulations. And Indians should know by now that that is a bad word because it's just this word that's not defined. So when you have a government that quote unquote regulates, basically they're taking away your God-given rights, okay? And in the case of Indians, that would be our birthrights, okay? So we can call out YouTube. Technically, YouTube should want, they should want high traffic on their platform, right? They should, right? Because that means, hey, I saw one YouTuber posted that The majority of people prefer to look to YouTube for news, not the news on television. So YouTube, when I think I just want to remind YouTubers, it's not YouTube, it's the regulation of YouTube that causes YouTube to, as you know, a lot of times your video will post and then later on it is pulled down, right? So what does that mean? YouTube didn't have a problem with it, but somewhere in their management, shall we say, they're being regulated. Y'all don't understand what regulation is about because we never defined it. So once again, we have a rogue government that now seems to be listening to the likes of a person with the last name Musk. Not too many people with that last name that we know of, right? Very unique, right? I want to speak briefly on the Trump Musk connection. And as y'all know, I like to common sense things. Now, I don't watch the news. I can't, you know. Um, but I try to figure out what is this I'm hearing about the Trump Musk connection. And the best I could come up with, now this is just my opinion, right? I'm not saying this is facts. I'm just saying the way I know this government is working, the only way that some strange dude with a whole lot of money can have any influence is with that whole lot of money, right? So you have the United States with a cadillion zillion dollar debt, right? That they say that we owe this government is crazy in debt, but somehow it still gets to exist. Now, when you and I are in debt, they try to end all of that, right? But this beast can have a cadillion dollar. I don't know where I came up with this word, cadillion, but hey. So they can have cadillion, zillion, billion, trillion, uh, a million, uh, dillion, fillion, uh, oillion dollar debt, right? And it still get to exist. But what's happening, according to how I know debt works, is if someone buys the debt, and they usually don't have to pay the full price of the debt. But if they're like a billion dillionaire, uh, they can certainly make enough of a payment to own to buy that debt, and then all of a sudden now they're controlling the entity that they purchased, right? Because it's like they buy the debt and now you owe them, okay? So whoever the debt was owed to, say if it was Britain, for example. So Britain gets a big payment, right? They go off, but the machine, the circus is still in town because now someone else has to work this circus to their benefit, right? They have to make a profit, right? They just bought a debt, we could say, right? So now it's like, it's my turn. Meanwhile, Indians are here like, all this is taking place on my ancestral land. And I'm supposed to just stand here and be a victim of all of this. You know you're at the bottom, Indians. Stop and frisk is coming. Those people who are, they have a Christ named Trump. Well, your Christ is going to have your children being stopped and frisked and all the good stuff that comes with that, okay? What they call racial profiling, okay? And you can't go crying to the world like you did when Mr. got choked out. Mr. Floyd got choked out and you went crying to the world. Help me. And credit to the world, you stood up. You stood up, world. How can you stand up now when the slaves chose their master who has decreed that he will institute stop and frisk? Okay. So we go crying to the world now. What should they say to us? Now, I'm not part of this. I didn't vote, right? Um, what should the world, if they were to be um, real and ask themselves, we came to your rescue before, and then you turn around and you offer about a man who will institute stop and frisk. What you want us to do? That's what they should be asking. What do you want us to do that you're not doing? Because if you're not doing it, what can we do? We need you to be on board for your own best interest before we get involved. And Indians have a standing on the land that they are too afraid to stand in. They want somebody else to run their affairs, talking like they're a big boss and they all about this and they about their business and all that. Yeah, but you don't want to handle your business. You don't want to handle your business because it's so much easier to have somebody handle it for you. Meanwhile, that same person not only robbing you, but trying to genocide you too, and you okay with that. So there's a lot to think about, y'all. But yeah, in the spirit of transparency, because I just told you that we have to speak. We have to speak our standing because we have entities that are so willing to trample on us. So let's read the letter that we got. Let's be transparent with it and read what we got from. They're coming for you, Indians. So for me to not speak up, they're coming for you. Stop and frisk is around the corner. And now, I'm hearing something about Social Security, whatever. Everything that was supposed to be there for you is hanging in the balance. Why? Because this system knows you to be a United States citizen. It's beyond being black at this point. It's if you're a United States citizen, you are their property. You are the one. We're going to read that 14th Amendment again to see that United States citizens, they cannot question the national or the public debt, right? So what does that mean? You have to pay it. You have to pay it. And if you can't pay it, and we have a Musk person paying it, well, then he becomes the boss, right? I mean, that's how it works in business. If you all have a better explanation, you know, knock yourself out with it. Go on. Enlighten us. We don't mind. So let me read the letter that I received. Because what? I'm an Indian, right? I'm an Indian standing on my land. So I'm going to let other Indians know why, because I have to avoid genocide, right? And I have to actively do that. So I'm going to read the notice I got from the New York City Environmental Protection after they got my Indian not tax package. Now I'm standing on a papal bull that was repudiated by the one who is really the foundation of all of the colonization that happened to American Indians starting in 1492 or 1493, for those who got to be technical with it. Okay, dear Anthony Clements, we have received your request regarding the above account. Your inquiry is important to us, and we will respond in full after the issue has been thoroughly researched. Investigation and response time for an inquiry of this type can take up to 90 days, but this may change if field work or inspections are necessary. Please allow sufficient time to elapse before submitting a second request. If you have an alternative telephone number or telephone numbers or an email address, please contact our contact center at 718-595-7000 and provide this information. They may be able to provide you with additional information or a progress update at any time. We appreciate your cooperation and patience. Sincerely, the Bureau of Customer Services. Now, I have no problem with this letter. So as I read it, I have to say that a level of, I find a level of respect in that letter. So I have no problem with the letter, right? There you have it. I just read it. What do I think about it? I think that Indians have to speak up so those kind of investigations can take place. Now, there's a part of me that is like, what, they don't know this? And there's another part of me that says, you're darn right, they don't. So we're going to let them do what they need to do. I did the research, but they didn't, right? So they have to find out, what is he talking about when he's talking about a papal bull? Well, we got to find out, because our attorneys, they don't speak these things to us. They only tell us that, hey, you got to collect. Who owes? Okay, so we're taxing Indians, not tax. Get that money. Get the money. They've never heard of Indian not tax before, although it's in the Constitution. Again, Indians have this code of silence, right? And I had to talk myself up to reading this letter for you, because I'm going by how Indians act, scared, and like, what the hell do I have to be scared of? I did the research. I know how this government has misappropriated lands. There is no doubt about that. Now, the only thing that Heru messed up with, and I was going to send a second notice, and I find it interesting that they asked me not to send a second notice, because my second notice was a little better than my first. But they both are very extremely legally binding. Why? Because we learned through Peter DeRico that the three foundational cases, they even call them, what? The Marshall Trilogy? What's the other word? But these cases are known, widely known. That's why it shouldn't be a whole lot of research needed. We read a summary of the cases in the last video. Thank you, ancestors, right? So we know that the Supreme Court uses the doctrine of discovery to misappropriate lands, right? This is what Peter DeRico showed us, right? So now an agency like the Department of Environmental Protection, they have to find that out, because they're not being told this. Okay? So again, we might have Indians that will hear this and go on some field day about, he gonna get in trouble. See, don't blah, blah, blah. I don't know, because I see that Indians are not acting like Indians. So they prefer to have a foster daddy who whoops their ass every day, all their lives. And this is what they're used to. This is what they liked. But they don't understand that this is a genocide. They use the word, but they don't apparently understand what it means. You got to get real. So what is Heru doing today? I'm speaking it. I'm speaking my freedom, y'all. I don't know about you. You too scared? Okay. That's the problem. You got to say, they're going to tell you what you got to pay, right? They don't have a problem telling you that you got to pay when the Constitution says you don't. They're standing on jankiness. You got a footing and you're scared to speak. So who's going to win? You know, you can lead a horse to water, but I'm going to find peace in the fact that you cannot make them drink. Yes, this is a journey. I shouldn't have to do it alone, but I will if I have to. I will if I have to. But I'm not going to be ridiculed. This is way too serious for that. If you want to go ridicule somebody, look in the mirror and ask yourself, why are you an Indian not taxed trying to be taxed and call yourself an Indian? Why are you talking about creating a state when you should be reestablishing whatever tribe you were part of? Why are they doing that? Because they would be part of the 5 civilized tribes. That, you know, I mean, they could still create a non-civilized version of their tribe, which would have more jurisdiction than the civilized version of their tribe. But I don't understand how Indians are claiming Indian and don't want to resurrect their tribe. You have to speak to who you were to let this system know who you are. Indians want to come up with new names of tribes that didn't exist before the federal government was here. Well, you're shooting yourself in the foot. You got to go back and tell them who you were so you can reestablish who you were, because that's who the contracts were made with. Not this new thing, fandango thing that you're making so that the government could have a field day with it. No, we don't create states. They're already created. States have already been created by your master when he was acting as your master, and when the church confirmed that he could do so. The church has now said, nope, we made a mistake. That was a misinterpretation of what we meant. They're saying that they was against this back in the 1500s. That repudiation letter, if we can read that one part, numerous, and this is Article 8 of the repudiation of the Doctrine of Discovery. I wonder what they actually call this, because the only name I know to call it is the repudiation of the Doctrine of Discovery, but it should have its own name, right? It should have a name, just like the doctrine, what do you call it? The what is this thing? What is it? Doctrine of Discovery. Okay, sorry, had a brain fart. Um, so just like the Doctrine of Discovery has a nice, compact, easy to remember name, Doctrine of Discovery, this should have one too. The repudiation of the Doctrine of Discovery. That's a lot of words though. So on Article 8, this Pope Francis is saying, we was against this back in 1537. Y'all didn't do nothing. And so now we have to reconvene today, and I have to reiterate to y'all that if y'all don't stand up for your rights, well, we just going to get trampled over. So here's what Pope Francis says is Article 8, numerous and repeated statements. He said numerous and repeated, y'all, so we tried to tell y'all several times, you Indians, right? But y'all are so brainwashed by your Moors. We were too. The church is created by the Moors. But y'all still so under your Moorish spell that you don't hear that we've been telling you we made repeated statements by the church and the popes. Uphold the rights of indigenous people. He said they've been doing this since 1537 when the bull Sublimis Deus, Pope Paul III wrote, we define and declare that the said Indians and all other people who may later be discovered by Christians are by no means to be deprived of their liberty or the possession of their property, even though they be outside the Christian faith. So he's saying way back in 1537, another bulletin said that we don't believe that Indians are to be deprived of their liberty and possession of their property, and that they may and should freely, now that's the key word, y'all, freely. What does that mean? You don't have to pay anybody for your land back. Does Heru have to spell it out? Does any Indian still want to exist? This is Article 8 in the repudiation of the Doctrine of Discovery of March 30th, 2023. We are a year in, y'all. What moves are you making to claim this? Heru has given you an example of how you can. You have to claim this document, y'all. Now, I see where the document is a little wanting because we want to hear more about Indians than we do about indigenous, right? Because when Columbus came here, we were called Indians. So I am so glad that Pope Francis mentions Indian in this document. It's mentioned one time, y'all. Now, indigenous is mentioned several times in this document, from what I recall. I'm not reading the whole thing, but Indian is only mentioned once. You have a slim sliver, Indians, to get your shit together. You don't buy your land, Indians. If you do, forget reparations. Because if you think that you should buy land, you don't deserve reparations. I'm going to say that again. Any Indian out there who thinks buying land is the way to go and now I could start my tribe, not going to happen, y'all. The land is part of your reparations. Get a clue. Do you know how to be respected, Indians? Or do Heru have to tell you that too? Even fixing your face to talk about reparations, you better be looking for your land to be returned to you freely. How do you look buying land, though? How do you look buying back your own land when that should be returned to you due to the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery? Because the Pope said Indians are by no means to be deprived of their liberty and possession of their property. Added to the fact that we're Indians not taxed, we need to get a clue, right? So he said, even though they be outside the Christian faith, that they may and should freely and legitimately, that means, what does that mean? It's not going to be janky. We understand that they're supposed to legitimately enjoy their land freely, enjoy their liberty and possession of their property. Now he's using commercial terms, but Indians, we know how, we have to remind him, well, we didn't call it property, Pope Francis. Thank you. We appreciate your effort here. We truly do. But we have to call the thing what it was when it was ours, because this beast is going to still think that they have jurisdiction if we use terms like property and liberty. Liberty is something that your master gives you. Freedom is what God gives you. Do we have to tell the priest what God freedom is? Or are they so locked up in liberty where they're giving us uh, a form of freedom that they call liberty, which is not freedom at all, but it's something that, like everything that Congress gives federal Indians, they giveth, they taketh away. They can giveth, they can taketh away. You got to go for what they can't give you, which is your land. Well, they're going to give you your land back, but they didn't give that to you originally. God gave it to you. So we're going to finish reading this. They may and should freely and legitimately, this is Article 8 of the Repudiation of the Doctrine of Discovery, freely and legitimately enjoy their liberty and possession of their property. We have to possess our land, y'all. If you're sitting back talking about you got to get land patents, that's not possessing your land. You got this thing, this repudiation, consider that your land patent if you need a land patent. Nor should they be in any way enslaved, voluntary or involuntary. He did not say involuntarily slave. He said, nor should they be in any way enslaved. Now, he's repeating what Pope Paul III said, but the fact that he's repeating it, he's backing. So this is two popes that have agreed, not just Pope Francis. He's quoting, again, Pope Paul III, right? So he's trying to say, y'all behind. Why do I have to come here when y'all already had a lot of this was repudiated back in 1537? So all this time, we didn't even know that the church does not affirm what this government is doing to us, right? I mean, we're going to let them get that one off, okay? They know that we don't know this shit, y'all. That's why they run circles around us, and Indians want me to believe that we created this system. And they can run this many circles around us, and we don't know what time of day it is, and we created this. Listen, when you create something, you know how it works. You are the master of that thing. Newsflash, that ain't what we got, y'all. That ain't what we got going on here. They are running circles around us. Now, they're not even going to tell you why Mr. Musk. How are we even quoting something he's saying about this government? Why are we? Who the hell is he? A man with a whole lot of money? So you mean anyone with a whole lot of money gets to make my rights for me because I don't have as much money as they? This is what commerce does? And you wonder why Indians need law of the land, but they so busy chasing a fucking dollar that they want commercial code too, thinking they're going to be a billionaire like Elon Musk? You'll be the most soulless thing on this earth. Indians, you got to decide what's more valuable to you and your eternal position, if you are to have one on earth. Will money bring you back, or will your ancestors' land bring you back and support you? You think you can trust in the almighty dollar? You think that has validity in the afterlife? Think you could buy your way back or buy your way over? We have to stop the infatuation with money, y'all. Make land your new money. Figure it out. Make land your new money and run for that like you run for a dollar. That will keep you here for eternity if you want to. I'm going to be very honest. I'm going to just get a little bit preachy. It is your choice as far as I'm concerned whether you come back or not. But the thing is, if you're trying to avoid coming back because you think I'm not going through this again, you're going to go through it again. You don't escape the mess you made, y'all. It's just something that we all know, and we just don't like to talk about it, right? You're not running from anything, y'all. So the kind of folks that feel like I want to die because I don't want to do this no more. You're going to do it again because you're here for a reason. A lot of people say that we chose to come here. So you can't back out of something that you came here to do, right? So what I'm you don't get to run from an issue like this, Indians. So it's you might as well do all you can to reclaim your position here on Earth. You've got to. Everybody else's get a clue. Look at the Middle East and how these people they understand the value of land, right? I mean, that's the least we can say. They're not fighting over money. And as much as we might have our opinions about both sides of this fight, the one thing is certain, they're fighting for the most valid thing on earth, land. While we Indians, myself included at one point, I just saw that a tons of money was supposed, somehow I had it in my head that all I need is a whole lot of money. That's all I need. That was the old me. But the ancestors are kind of amazing. They will show you. They will show you. Indians, you better be about your land because you will be crying for an afterlife and talking about you don't want to come back here. But the only reason why you're going to be feeling that way is because you haven't done what you need to do here. You want to run from the troubles of the world, but you have an opportunity to change these troubles into joy. You got to grab what the ancestors are trying. They already did the work, y'all. You just have to pick it up. Pick up that repudiation. Get your paperwork together. Tell them who you are. And you won't have to worry about civilized tribes. They can't come for you. They can't do anything. The only thing they probably will do is say, you know what? I don't want to be civil no more. I don't want to be civilized no more. It never got me anything anyway. That's the only thing. Let me tell y'all something. The only thing you're rejecting when you reject being a civilized tribe is the Moorish half of your family who have already rejected you. Just haven't seen it because you're in his face. He's already rejected you. All you have to do is say, you know what? I love you, boo, but I'm not going to let you do what you fitting to do. Erase me and say that because you're African, I am too? No, I was never African. I just married one, unfortunately. Indians have to have that mindset because Africa is bringing the whole world to take your shit. How do we get to that? We're going to try to just keep saying things over and over. When the world knew the Moors, they only knew the Moors to be African, right? I ask Indians now, why did the world think that Moors were African? Do, 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 do. Do, 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 do. Why did the world always know the Moors to be African, y'all. Who put that out there? It had to be the Moors, right? They never said otherwise. So what do Indians have to do with the Moorish side of their family that made them civilized and Iroquois and Cherokee? What do Indians have to do with the Moors of their family that keep telling them how to be in this system as a slave, but won't tell them that Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 means you ain't supposed to be paying taxes? Somehow the Moors don't understand that part of the Constitution, dude. I wonder how they explain that part. They probably go straight to the Commerce Clause because that's what's in direct conflict with Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. Indian not tax is different from Indian tribes. But what the goal was, y'all, that they were going to, if you got together and you had a large group, the way they minimize your numbers is by making you an Indian tribe in regulation, being regulated. So that means you can have 1,000 members of your tribe, but you're like as powerful as a mouse because of regulation. Regulation is stripping you. You can't even be an Indian not taxed when you're in regulation. You could be a tax exempt Indian in an Indian tribe, but you must, be in that tribe. But you're disempowered because you're in this mysterious regulation that was never defined. So the world only knew Moors as African, but then they come here and they're trying to tell us Indians, well, before we was African, we was American, sort of, kind of. And Indians are like, yeah, you was me, and I was you, and when I was in Africa doing all that stuff you was doing, that was me. And the Moors be like, yeah, through me, that was you. Oh, wow. And the Indians so happy because they feel like all America know about us is that we were slaves. But you saying before I was a slave from Africa, I was a king in Africa? You have to have your own identity, Indians. You can't have a Moorish American identity. I'm so sorry. Because all that tells the government is that that's all they see. They already see you as something they don't want here. You tell them you're a foreigner and they're going to make sure that that happens. They're not going to hear the Indian part. You have to call Indian, period. The Moors already had their shit, right? And now they're trying to come and take your shit by saying you're them. But the world only knew you as African. So how all of a sudden you come to me and you're telling me that we are one and the same because we look alike? Is that how it works in the rest of the world? People get to have a nationality based on what they look like? Moors? You're simple ass. And they will try to answer that and make it like it's legitimate. That, yeah, just the way you look means that that's what your nationality is. Y'all been playing us for a fool for a long time, and y'all need to stop because when you are in front of us, you get foolish. You see our birthright, you see the wealth of our land, and you will say anything, won't you, More? You will say anything to us. Meanwhile, you're creating a whole new identity that no one ever knew you to be in the world. And what again, I'm going to always keep saying it till it makes sense. Indians, why did the Moors deny you? If they're saying that they are you, your question to them is, then why did you deny me back then? Why, when everybody was saying that life began in Africa where you are, why didn't you tell them no? It actually began in America. where I used to be. You see, what's going to happen to the Moors is they're going to live the reality of their lies. And there's nothing an Indian can do but get out of the way. The world already knows them to be African. The only thing that's stopping that is a delusional Indian. The only thing that's saving a Moor from being who he always claimed to be is a delusional Indian. And when an Indian embraces a Moor, suddenly your Indian side of the family gets erased. Tell me that that's not what's happening. I really would like to know how it's not happening, because that's all I see. All I see is that when an Indian mixes with somebody else, it's the somebody else that gets controls everything. And the Indian just standing there talking about, and when we had Boo Boo, he turned 4, and we had him when we got married in Timbuktu, and then we had a African ceremony, and we jumped the broom, and with that. Meanwhile, they all they saying is, yeah, just keep talking about my side of the family. We don't want to hear about your side. Why? Because that's the part that they're genociding. If Indians ever get a clue, that's what they'll know. That's what they'll realize. You can marry someone and still keep your identity, y'all. That's not what's happening when Indians mix with Moors. All they talk about is what they've done. But again, you got to ask them, then why did you deny me back then? You're claiming me now. Why did you deny me back then, though? I'm going to tell you why. Indians, are you listening? Back then, scheming about how to come back here, genocide you. And that's exactly what they sent Columbus to do. They couldn't claim you because it would be like suicide. The mission that they were hoping to accomplish in America, and for the most part, they have. They have genocided us mentally because Indians want to be friendly with their worst enemy because he looks like them. That means Indians have been brought so low in their esteem that they'd rather be known as a beastly colonizer than to be known as an Indian. So they will say, yeah, that was us. That's not you, Indians. That's your brother. That's your brother, like Esau was a brother to Jacob. I'll say it till it makes sense. That's your brother, like Cain was to Abel, but much worse. Indians have to learn to see that the only value you have to a Moor is your birth canal, to push out his progeny so that his progeny can deny you too. And then they will say that this is how we took America. We were great in Africa, and we're not giving up that greatness. We only give it up when we sweet talking Indians. But as soon as we get these knuckleheads to get in bed with us, then we resurrect how great we were, because that's the truth. The truth of the matter is, all the Moors are known for is their big conquest outside of America and starting empires all around the world. You think they're going to give that up? No. They just need to brainwash Indians so we can talk that bullshit. And then we could be accused of all the horrible things that Moors have done. And that becomes our legacy. You better leave that legacy alone. All they did was torment people into their religion. And then they brainwashed a bunch of into believing they're Moors, I should say. And now the Indians is talking all this bullshit, promoting Moors like we them, and we one and the same. No, we're not. So okay, Heru done did his anti-Moor rant. What do we have on the agenda for today? Well, we want to look at some slides that I have. I call them slides. I don't know what else to call them. Screenshots? Okay, that's better. Okay. So to recap, we heard back from one of the agencies. We did the research, but now they have to do the research, and that's okay. I am still outside of their jurisdiction. They don't have the authority to charge me with anything because the Constitution clearly states, along with the papal bull that has been repudiated, first of all, our Constitution says I'm an Indian, not taxed. The Pope didn't even say that part. Our Constitution says it, but they're hoping that we fall into an Indian tribe category, or they're going to conveniently associate us with an Indian tribe. But if you're not part of a tribe, how are they going to see Indians? See how you got to work this system? Now they're going to say, well, we're supposed to regulate you because you're an Indian, and we have Article 8, or I'm sorry, Section 8. And you have to tell them, well, that applies to if I'm in a tribe, though. And furthermore, that applies only if I'm in a federal tribe, right? Because you guys have gotten rid of my tribes, didn't you? You only want to see certain tribes. So no, the Commerce Clause wouldn't apply to me because I'm not an Indian tribe. And so that's how you break it. That's how you get them off of your back, Indians, because they're going to get it confused. They're going to go jump between the Indian not tax clause and the Indian tribe clause. But there's a difference between an Indian not tax and an Indian tribe, isn't there? Well, look, according to the Constitution, the wording of the Constitution, yes, there is. An Indian not taxed is not in an Indian tribe doing commerce. That's what we want to look at, Indians. So yes, so we're good. We're going to give the New York City Bureau of Customer Services time to research because this is going to be groundbreaking, y'all. Come on now, somebody got to say it. If Indians would do what they're supposed to do, everything you do would be groundbreaking because you're going to be re-educating this legal system that don't know nothing about your laws. All they know is federal Indian laws, and that's oxymoronic. The federal don't make Indian laws. Even Peter DeRico calls them federal anti-Indian laws. So, Indians, that is why I decided to read the letter to you. Now, for a minute there, I was saying, I'm going to paraphrase that. What have I got to be afraid of? I better be able to stand on what I'm saying, and I better know how to say it. So this is good practice. This is excellent practice. I got to know my rights, y'all. I don't know about you. Okay? We got not just the Pope, we got the damn Constitution. But how are we going to work? Again, how we're going to work it is Indians are going to say, well, I'm not an Indian tribe, so I'm an Indian not taxed. And then if I do have a tribe, it's going to be a tribe of Indians not taxed. How about that? You see, we don't have to be federal tribes anymore, Indians. Come on, get with the program. Y'all can't leave an Indian who's trying to show y'all freedom. You just can't act like you don't hear him, okay? I know this is new to you, but it's all there. I'm just showing it to you. I ain't making it up. I didn't make up the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. I didn't make the Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3. All I did was show you what it means because I listened to attorneys who had sense and saw the fraud for what it is, federal anti-Indian law. It's anti-Indian because Congress was never supposed to make laws for Indians, let alone have what plenary authority? You must be bugging. Plenary what? Congress have several seats in Congress. Okay, so Indians, we have a commerce clause that redefined commerce. What I wanted to do was figure out, well, what was commerce when it first began? Because it seems like it's not that anymore. They are doing all kinds of things with that commerce clause, y'all. Having a field day. They made everything commerce. But what was commerce before? I just want to remind Indians. We asked the AI overview because we try to make our videos a little, well, not as long because Heru going to talk so much. He want to keep it simple in the places where he can, right? So AI overview explained, and we know this, Native American tribes primarily traded furs with early European settlers. And later, the United States, the corporation, exchanging pelts like beaver fur for manufactured goods such as guns, blankets, metal tools, cloth, and cooking utensils, which they could not produce themselves. They saying Indians didn't have those. Whatever. Okay. Uh, this was a major form of commerce between Indians and the states. Now, I was so happy that they said between Indian and the states throughout the history of colonization in North America. So, Indians, what I want you to see, what was quote unquote commerce? How did we think of commerce? We didn't look at it as they're going to be controlling our land, right? Right. We thought we would just be trading stuff like beaver fur. And see, they're talking about Algonquins. Now, we Algonquins. Now, we were all Algonquins. The Indians, we're not going to belabor this anymore. You're going to hear, please, hear when I say the first linguistic or language that of the eastern woodland areas was Algonquin. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that the Iroquois wasn't here. It doesn't mean that the Cherokee wasn't here. It doesn't mean that the five civilized tribes wasn't here. What it means is they all were speaking Algonquin. So the ancestors have updated me, and now they've shown me what the unifying factor is. Iroquois is a young created language, and I believe that we got early on, we were infiltrated by Britain, but they didn't come like King James came. They came, I think he sent, members of somebody in Britain sent them, right? Some nobility sent these people here to what do you call it? When you doing, what is it? Not speculate. I'm sorry. That thing when you prospecting. Yeah, prospecting. I'm sorry, I'm thinking of something else. Prospecting. So they sent explorers to soften us. So they went to the south. Some of the earlier settlements were Roanoke, right? So they came to the heart of Algonquin land and they went down, they were in the south. Then all of a sudden, now they talking about Algonquins only come from the north. Yeah, because you infiltrated us early on and started breeding with us. And I believe that's how they started to develop these five civilized tribes because once again, Indians are being genocided and they're being given the history of their invaders. And so the invaders are telling you that you're one and the same with him. And then you become a five civilized tribes, taking on all his customs, his religion. And now you're against, quote unquote, uncivilized Indians. So they came, got their five civilized tribes in as early as the 1500s. By the time King James comes, he knows he has a bunch of turncoats in the most southern parts of Algonquin land, right? And they're talking about their Cherokee, or they're morphing into some other, like Iroquois, because the Cherokee are Iroquois, right? Cherokee, I know y'all mad at me, but I'm gonna call a truce with you. I, I. Let's just say the ancestors have taught me better. I'm going to say that you are Algonquins because I know you were. You have choice. Indians have choices. It's the foreigners that don't. And the more you identify with a foreigner, the less choices you have. Right now, I'm going to say it again. Civilized tribes will not have the same power as an Indian not tax tribe because you are federal now. But you have a choice. You can go to the federal and say, I don't want to be federal anymore. I know that my tribe is infiltrated and mixed. That doesn't mean I have to give up my entire identity, does it? Why would you want us to do that, federal government? Are you supporting genocide of Indians for their European family members only? Is that how this is working? So, Indians, I just want to show at one point, this is what we thought commerce was. But by the time the federal government and Congress get involved, commerce, we read the cases. Commerce is about, oh, the state wants to take a big portion of the five civilized tribes of the Cherokees' land. And the Cherokee figure, oh, well, let's go to the Supreme Court because surely they're going to support us keeping our little reservation that they gave us, right? Wrong. The Supreme Court said, nah, give it to Georgia. Let them have it. We'll give you some other land somewhere else and we'll feed you. Feed me? Wait a minute. Whose food are you feeding me with, federal government? So are you feeding me or am I feeding myself? See, y'all got it so twisted. Y'all got it so very twisted. Indians, the task looks bigger than it is. But really taking back what's yours is as easy as eating pie. It really is. This system is going to hem and haw and make it like they got a leg to stand on. Using Elon Musk, he's your weapon. That's what so he's going to control the corporation now because he bought it. I mean, how else is he having any say? Y'all sold him the debt that United States citizens can't question. And now he's going to what? Control United States citizens? Well, my declaration told you I'm not a United States citizen. I'm an Indian. And when Indians start to live in that reality, that's the only time you're going to be able to collect rent. Now, Indian, here's the thing. You know that I don't advocate colonizer monopoly dollars, right? No. But if it's compensation for your land, well, that's like compensation for your land. Here's the thing, though. Indians don't sell land. They'll get compensated for it, but they don't sell it. Now, the federal government did a thing with Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. No. What was that one? No, that wasn't Cherokee. That was Johnson versus McIntosh, where uh oh, the Indians could not sell title. The government, they didn't honor your title. When you sold land that you should have a right to sell because it's yours, the government said, no, it's ours. So I want Indians to see the difference in what the government means by commerce and regulating commerce in Section 8. Article 1, I believe, is Section 8, Clause 3, is where they say Congress has the right to regulate commerce, whatever, right? But look on the screen at what we thought commerce was, as opposed to what the Supreme Court ruled in Johnson versus McIntosh, where Indian could not sell title. to someone. Now that's money that you could be making off your land, right, Indian? So what am I saying? Getting paid for your land is you still owning your land. So that's why Heru, I'm going to say, hey, if that's how you get your dollars, that's okay. But never trust the dollar. Trust your land. Trust your land. You could ask, you don't even have to take money for your land. You could say, I want something else as payment. But I think what has to happen is we got to bleed them like they bleed us. I'm just going to keep it very real. We got to make it where first of all, we're not supposed to be paying for your money. Like they got this commerce game so tight that using their money, they got it where you have to pay to use their money and you don't even know you're paying, but that's what's contributing to the quote unquote public debt or the national debt that you have to pay as a United States citizen. So that's why you can never repay the national debt because every time you use a dollar, you say now you got to pay back two. So where's that other dollar that you owe going to come from? It's going to come from the Federal Reserve, and now you owe $4. So when you got to pay back $4, where that's going to come from? It's going to come from the Federal Reserve, and that now you paid them the $4, now you owe them $8. You see how every time you use their dollar, the debt is multiplied. So what Indians have to do is say, because I'm an Indian not taxed, isn't me paying for your money like a tax? I shouldn't be paying. Wait, where did you get the money from? Is that from a tree on my land? Did you use all the trees in the District of Columbia up? Because really, even the District of Columbia shouldn't be the District of Columbia now that the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. See, this thing is just so big, y'all, that I'm not even seeing the width and breadth of it. But a lot has to end with the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery, that if we don't end it, even the Pope doesn't have to do anything because he's going to say that they're choosing this. So Indians have to be kind of vocal and say, no, I'm not choosing this. I want my land back. If this has been repudiated, then somebody should have been notifying me to give me my land, really, but we know they ain't going to do that. But anyway, Indians, so I just want to remind you, this is what commerce used to be. Then it became this beast that comes for your land and comes for you as well. I just wanted to remind you what we thought commerce meant and what it does not mean as of today when Congress has plenary authority. How does me selling you pelts turn into you having plenary authority over me? So then we're not in commerce anymore because then you can just take whatever I have, right? Like you're doing. Happens between two sovereign people, not a lord over a slave over master over slave. That is not when you're trading master to slave, that's not commerce, y'all, because you are property of the master. He's just taking from you. And that's what happened to Indians. They turned it into a master-slave relationship when it was a sovereign-to-sovereign relationship where I had things that belonged to me. But they always wanted our land, y'all, because that's how they can cripple us. And then they tell us what we can grow. Now, I heard one of the last things I heard was that they're trying. Now, I don't know if they're going to do this, but this is the kind of talk you hear when your government is constantly dreaming of ways to genocide you. Well, I just have to say it what it is. So there was I know someone, actually it's one of my constituents or colleagues, said that they're trying to make it where you can only grow certain things on your farm. How is that even possible when this is my land? How are you going to tell me what I can and cannot grow? But this is what the kind of things when they think, how they regulate commerce, that means we get to tell you what you can grow. And you can't grow so much because we don't want you to be quote unquote independent. We want to control your bag. Indians, you're supposed to be in control of your bag. In this whole entire thing, you were supposed to get a profit. Look at that screen and tell me, why were Indians selling furs? What were they getting? Profit, right? How does commerce become, I don't get a profit anymore, and you just take my shit? How does that become, how does the government call itself regulating commerce? All you're doing is stealing. Get a wake-up call. Let's read. So this is a screenshot, but now we want to read. What was commerce with Indian tribes at what are they saying? Okay. So this is from federalism.org. Uh, if you want to look it up, Indian tribes by Conrad J. Weiler Jr. Okay. So let's just see what this is saying. I forgot why I pulled it, but I think I want to show the simplicity of commerce versus what it's become, where now they're taking your land and you don't have any land, but they tell you what land you could have. The power to regulate commerce with the Indian tribes was placed in the Constitution to clarify and continue a power over Indian commerce. Okay, so he's telling us how they turned it into what it is today, right? In other words, it started out, I was selling you things that I had that were mine, the beaver pelts, the things that I cultivated from my land. But then you came and took my land. So let's start again. The power to regulate commerce with the Indian tribes was placed in the Constitution to clarify and continue a power over Indian commerce. How are you taking power over commerce when this land is all mine? And to generally manage Indian affairs. Now, that is not what the Constitution said. It says they're regulating commerce between Indians and the states, Indian tribes and the states. So how does that become manage Indian affairs? Okay, so um, the power to regulate commerce with the Indian tribes was placed in the Constitution to clarify. It didn't clarify anything, though. They didn't define what regulating commerce means. So they didn't clarify anything, right? There's no clarity at all. So it was placed in the Constitution to clarify and continue a power over Indian commerce. So you're not regulating, you're seeking power over it. See, this is what I liked about this article. Because for what they mean by regulate commerce is completely different from what Indians would think, right? That's why I know we didn't create this system, because we would have checked this at the door. A power that was already in the Articles of Confederation. But what do the Indians have to do with the Articles of Confederation will be the next question. Well, that's when they're going to call, let's say, talk about the Iroquois Confederacy. That's usually when they start talking about what the Iroquois Confederacy did and how they helped us shape our Constitution and blah, 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 right? So they blame it on us. In other words, it was your people that helped us to do this to you. Yeah, that my people infiltrated by Moors who look like. And when you came, they started doing your bidding, although they look like me. So they saying this power was already in the Articles of Confederation, but had not stopped some states from dealings with Indians. So before states could deal with Indians, they're saying, but now, it's before it didn't stop some states from dealing with Indians in ways detrimental to the national interest. Wait a minute. If a state wants to do business with Indians, how is that detrimental to national interest? That's one state, right? They wanted to do business with Indians, but the Fed said, no, wait, no, I want to see. Let me see. I want to be involved. Why? Why do you need to be involved, federal government? Oh, right, because you want to have power over Indian. Well, why don't you just say what it is? That's not regulating. That's just power, right? For power's sake, because you got to make sure the Indians don't prosper, right? Is that what is going on here, federal? You want to get a piece of the action when we don't need to pay you. Why? Who the hell are you? But a representative of the crown. Come on, we got to call a thing, y'all. So it had not stopped some states from dealing with Indians in ways that were detrimental to our democracy. That's what I'm thinking about when I read this. We have to save our democracy. No, baby, you could throw that shit in the garbage, and along with you could take yourself home. Okay, save your democracy in your country. Okay, that shit never did nothing for me. But call me black, and that was the end of that, right? So before, the federal government didn't stop states from dealing with Indians that were ways that were detrimental to their national interest. As a means to give the federal government power, why do you need power, federal government? Do you have the least of the power in the original system? The state had more power than you. So why do you keep seeking power that you don't have? You beast freaking satanic death cult, ritualed up MFing bastard. As a means to give the federal government power to deal with the then still numerous and powerful prior inhabit Indians. You were the prior inhabit and or you were inhabitants. It wasn't your land. You were just inhabiting it. Okay. This is how they have to look at you. The still then numerous and powerful that was they're talking about you Algonquins. You were the fellow Algonquin Indians. You were the uncivilized ones. That's why you don't hear about you anymore. Away with you. Up to Canada with you. When you met me, I was in Virginia. Virginia is a southern state. How did I become so northern, colonizer? hmm And I'll say it again. All Indians were Algonquin because that's the oldest language. It's older than Iroquois. It's older than Muskogean. It's older than Siouan. And whatever language was in Florida, it's older than that too. As I said before, it's suspected or alleged that Chief Powhatan migrated from Florida. If he did, it's because they were escaping. I would say it's because they're escaping Moorish domination. That's how Algonquins get up to Canada. We didn't want that cold ass land up there where the Siberians infiltrated from. We didn't infiltrate. We didn't come the way Siberians came, as I said in the last video. We all came from the South, y'all. And Indians, that would be the South America and the Caribbean. Yeah, Indians migrated from the South up, and Siberians came from the North down. Okay, so as a means to give the federal government power to deal with the then still numerous and powerful prior inhabitants of the land, in addition to the treaty and military powers and the power to dispose of and make rules for federal territory, this power was seen primarily as a limit on the states. Why are you limiting the states from doing business with Indians who need the business? If you're coming to take over my land, I need to get compensated. This is a concept that the federal government apparently never understood. Now the states understood it, interestingly. The states knew something about us, right? I mean, we're the ones that helped them to survive. So I don't think the states, it wouldn't be a threat to national interest or detrimental to national interest for the states to do business with Indians, would it? The federal government thought it would be. Why? Because the federal government is controlled by the British nobility, y'all. Oh, we got to call a thing today. The District of Columbia is not even a state. So how do you come along and you're going to all of a sudden be in charge of the state? The Indians are the ones who's working the land. Of course, the states are going to want to do commerce with us. What is your problem with that, District of Columbia? Oh, because you want to sell my stuff to your people across the ocean, because that's who you are concerned with. Now, the states are here. They're trying to live here. You trying to use our land to support all the Moorish nations all around the world. Oh, that's why it's detrimental to international interests, right, DC? So the power was seen primarily as a limit on the states. Now, again, when states first appeared, states had more power than the federal. But then once the federal appears, all of a sudden it's sucking up all the air in America. And it's setting itself up like it has to be in charge. But why do you? There's no central government in Europe that controls all of the European states, since y'all deal with states, but then want to call it countries where it's convenient, and then call it a state when you need to take more power than a country, right? Africa doesn't have a District of Columbia that collects taxes from all the country states in Africa, does it? So why is there one in America? I'm going to tell you why. To make sure Indians don't prosper. That's why, because we're still here, right? So they want to take our place. They want to make the profit because the Moors are still trying to support their little pitiful empires all around the world, right? That's why they want to come back here so bad. Because this is a big slave pool for them because the slaves get to eat. Now, if your slaves don't eat, they die, right? And then you don't have slaves. So America represents the place where slaves can be fed genetically modified food, hoping to make them more docile, while the Moors just, as they always do, uh, profit off of their commerce that is specifically designed to be a one-way profit street, right? To the Moors, right? We're gonna call a thing, y'all. Um, by placing the Indian tribes on the same level, okay, so here's the part we need to see as foreign nations. See, they can't decide how to make, if they make us too foreign, they're supposed to leave us alone, right? So they have to come up with domestic dependent because they always going to seek to have power, right? Let's read that again. By placing the Indian tribes on the same level as foreign nations, well, that's what we are to you anyway. You're foreign to us, so well, of course we'd be foreign to you too, right? Because you came here, right? So by placing Indian tribes on the same level as foreign nations and the states, this power is thought to recognize the tribes as semi-sovereign. Okay, so you can't decide you don't want me to have my full sovereignty because you're going to call rank over me. But I was a sovereign before you got here. and I'm going to stay a sovereign long after you are gone, whether you like it or not. First of all, it's in the Constitution. What if I want to be an Indian not taxed tribe? What are you going to do, government? You're going to say, oh no, you can only be a federal. So you're going to tell me what kind of tribe I can be. Aren't you doing too much? Especially since the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. I'm supposed to enjoy my land freely without your quote unquote regulation. So they want us to be semi. And you can't half-ass anything, Indians. So their desire for us to be semi-sovereign, you can keep that bullshit. Third sovereigns? Well, I wouldn't be if I'm semi-sovereign, right? You are taking the sovereign position, District of Columbia, federal system. You are making yourself sovereign and you're giving me what? What you call semi-sovereign? Why do you get to decide what kind of sovereign? Wait a minute. Where's this all taking place again? Oh, on my ancestral land? Oh, okay. I just want to remind myself because reading this, you think I was in Britain or something. It is sometimes difficult to separate the different constitutional sources of power over the Indians because there ain't supposed to be no power over the Indians. That's called conquest, y'all. The lying policy. It is sometimes difficult to separate the different constitutional sources of power over the Indians' underlying policy. But the power over Indian commerce is very important, especially after 1871, when the United States ceased making treaties with the Indians. So you're little by little just stripping me of everything that would show me to be a sovereign. But never worry, never fear. The doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. All of this is null and void. Yeah, but Indians have to claim it. Indians, you got to claim it. In other words, Indians, when something else better comes, say now you settled to be a federal tribe because you were still in a time of the doctrine of discovery. Now that the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated, Indians have choices. You do not have to remain a federal or a 501c3 type of tribe. You now have the right to start a business, if what you want to call it a business, where you are separate and apart from any regulation of this system that all it did was you don't have to do business with somebody that sought to erase you from the other side of the contract, Indian. So you've got to be proactive about it. You now have even more footing since the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. So you can sell your wares anywhere you want, charging whatever you like, free of regulation. The doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. Regulating Indians was never defined. So the government said, well, why don't we just own all of them? And then that's how we could regulate. We just take ownership of Indians and stop treating. In other words, I don't even want to think about new treaties because I really think the faith is so bad between Indians and the feds that there's no way that we can expect them to even want us to prosper from any commercial agreements. They're seeking to own and dominate, y'all. It's just the bottom line. We have to say these are our resources and we have control over our resources with the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. So whatever you're holding and you're selling, you got to either start routing those profits to me and and you have to give me my land. The value of my land, whatever you getting as being like you're the, I don't know, trustee, trust. Trust has been broken. And it was namely only the feds that did it. Reclassifying us, number one. The Dawes Act, breaking up our tribes, number two. Along with that, introducing $5 Indians, number three, possibly. No longer doing treaties with us. That was, I think that came before the Dawes Act. Wait, in 1871. That Dawes Act was 1887, I believe. Yeah, so 1871, they as time goes by, all they're doing is taking back everything that the Constitution established, basically. So this is how they do business, y'all. Do you do business with someone that does this kind of business? Can you trust that they will act honorably? You can't, Indians. You can't. They don't even want you to exist as Indians. And now I said before, I want to be very clear that Indian, once we establish our footing again, we don't have to call ourselves Indians, you know. So don't never get it twisted. We are not married to that colonizer term by any means. And once we ever get a real history of the naming of this landmass, only then will we really know what to call ourselves. Because in the name and claim game, if you name it, you have rights over it. We can't be too sure that the word America was actually the name of this continent. But that's what we have to, as time progresses, we have to demand the true history. Who decided that this place was even called America? Who did that? Because if it wasn't an Indian, it's up for elimination. It just gets that deep with it, y'all. I mean, we could roll with America for the time being, but at some point, it's like, well, who named this place? Because they're going to continue to think that they have authority over it. I'm telling you, y'all, this is how they operate. Um, so the United States ceased making treaties with Indians. So that's another way where you're undermining my authority on the land and making me domestic dependent. If you treaty with me, that means I'm not domestic dependent. I'm supposed to have land. All of this has the effect of taking you from having authority over your land. As a Indian tribe, federally recognized, you do not have authority on the land, as we saw in the three major foundational cases, the Marshall Trilogy. The federal government took your land when it felt like it, and you couldn't sell it. They said the federal government said we the only power that can give title, not you Indians. So look how you're just there Indians, and they're saying you're just occupying the land, but you don't own it. That's what these cases are saying. You're inhabiting the land, but you don't own it. Like they said up here, they keep referring to us as inhabitants. No, we are the owners. Power over Indian commerce, including a dormant component, and the capacity to preempt state law, even in the absence of congressional legislation, then assumed greater importance after 1871. So the federal is saying, get out of the way, state. I'm going to deal with these tribes, not you. Now, the state is the closest thing you have to many of these federal tribes that are in states. So the federal government is assuming so much power over the Indians that it's telling the state, when you want to deal with them, you come to us. You don't go to them. So once again, the federal government is just stepping in like somebody told them that they were our Lord and Master. Who told them that? Well, it was the same church that said they ain't that no more. Okay. Thank you, Pope Francis. And hopefully he's a man of honor. Seriously. I am, I mean, his word is already out there. It's already on paper, right? So he wrote it, right? So he has to be held to that. He wrote it because he had to, because he knows what was done was wrong. That's why he wrote it. And it's a time in history where, like Cat Williams said, all is going to be revealed. All liars are going to be made to stand in the light of truth, basically. So in this new awakening, the Pope had to show up and admit that what was done was wrong. If Indians don't grab that, it'll be said that we allowed them. You see how that works, Indians? That's when you become a condemned people again. Because now it's going to be said, even in the awakening, Indians really like colonizer laws that limit them in every possible way, to the point where they're just not even a factor anymore. They don't get paid for what the government does with their land. The government puts it in a trust, and Indians think that that trust is going to be given to them. Everything was taken from you, put into a trust for someone else, y'all. Because what the job is to eliminate you, so they can say, well, we have this trust here, but there's no one alive to get it. I guess we should make it ours, and just in memory of those poor Indians, maybe we could take their place and be like honorary foreign Indian. We don't know what happened to them, but they sure are not trying to own their shit. Where, if there's some of them left, I don't know where they are, because they are not saying anything. They've been trained to be afraid. It's talking about creating states. No, you have to call up the tribe you were. Creating a state is extending colonizers' influence, not yours. And that's when you start to realize that it is for certain that the Moors were Black, right? Because you have Indians that are batting to extend the system. Why would an Indian want to create a state, though, when the whole country is there? You want one state in all of these other, who's going to be dominating you? Your little one state. Did you forget what happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Okay, maybe they won't be so blatant, but maybe they won't be so blatant as to drop a bomb on you, but who knows what they'll do that you won't even see once you create a state. That's you making yourself a target. How do you trust them? Oh, because you'll be in a state, so they'll honor you in a state. Again, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Um, Indians, you have to recreate what you were before colonization. Do not create any states. You're still using colonizers' games, and you're going to be part of an international conglomerate of states. What do you call it? World Federation of States. That's what they want. Where all of those states are going to be under the control of the United Nations. And that's going to be the boss, not the governor of your state. You're joining something that the colonizer has already put together. So what do you have to do as an Indian is recreate See, I feel like Indians don't want to create their territories because the whole point of colonization was for them to bleed into other Indians' territories. But again, if we realize that we were all Algonquin at one point, then we should unify and just make sure Indians are good. Like somewhat how the federal government takes care of immigrants for a short time until it's time to pay up. Indians have to make sure Indians are good everywhere. We have to use our farms to feed our people everywhere in the Americas. So no Indian goes hungry, and no Indian has to pay this exorbitant amount of money for food that's grown on their land. Now, you can charge people around the world for your food that you have to, because you have to survive, Indians. So it's not bad that you would charge for your food, but your food is free for you, right? Most certainly. I want to give an example. Uh, when I think of companies that use corn, for example, the corn industry owes the Indians more than anybody, I think, because corn was literally invented by Indians. I don't know who got the patent now, but I know that that is specifically an Americans created that. So all Indians should, once it becomes a cadillion, zillion, billion-dollar industry, now you can support all Indians. Why wouldn't we want to do that? We should want to do that, no matter what tribe we are, because the beast is going to support all its little beast children. So Indians should want to support their children, all, no matter what tribe they are. Just be Indians who are misclassified black. Those are the Indians that's losing everything on a freaking like daily basis. So tobacco industry, corn industry, cotton industry, these fashion designer agencies that use cotton and all of that, that's Indians should have got paid for that kind of thing. When they talk, it's like reparations is a living thing because so much of our resources are being used right now. And so it's like, it's not even that complicated. All you industries, I mean, you've used Indian territories to create these industries, and if you feel like Africa gave you something for the cell phone, well, then you need to go take over Africa. And if we want your cell phone, I guess we'll do some kind of deal. But at this point, I don't even know why we want cell phones because they just watching our ass. They ain't supposed to be watching Indians because we're not supposed to be in their system. I'm sure we can create cell phones too, but it would be fair and equitable business. Whatever we buy from Africa, we pay for it. I'm sure there's some things we got that they need. I ain't going to get into it deeply, but if Africa got something that we want to use, I'm sure we could find some kind of business plan of commerce directly with real Africans. But see, the name of the game, y'all, is that you can't deal any longer with any colonizer entities that calls itself representing the people of any landmass. That's all been repudiated. So it's like we got to reach the real people, not these overlords that are just stealing from the people. So let's fix. This is how Heru makes a one-page article into a 3-hour long video. Let's finish this and then maybe leave it here for now. So they stopped making treaties with us in 1871. It's just been a downhill roll ever since 1787, y'all. We've just been stripped and stripped and stripped of rights. And not only Indians, but even United States citizens, the foreign ones, are also being robbed by this entity, this singular entity that never even had all this power when it was first created because it was never given. It had 19 enumerated functions at most. That turned into world domination somehow. When the United States ceased making, okay, so the power over Indian commerce, including a dormant component and the capacity to preempt state law, even in the absence of, so they say they could do things without laws being passed. That's a lot of damn power to Congress gave itself. So you could do things to Indians that's not even hasn't been legislated yet. So you are literally being like a king or queen to us, right? And we are literally your subjects, the lowest subjects out of all other persons that you call persons in the quote unquote United States. This entity started out with 13 states. It took over the entire continent, and now it seeks to the Moors are using America as a storefront, y'all. It's selling freedom, and then once you buy it, you become a slave. This is what the Moors are doing. This has nothing to do with Europeans, except that they are the ones that the Moors are transferring the wealth to, as long as they play ball, as long as they do what the Moors tell them to do. I think nowadays Moors might have lightened up their skin because they got to appear where they don't have to be called black, right? So today's Moor probably looks the one that's the international Moor probably looks hmm, like a Derek Jeter or uh someone that you can't you're not sure you should call them black. They would have to tell you that they're black, like Kamala did. Oh, so that's a good example, Kamala, right? So today's Moore might look Kamala Harris-ish, where, oh, I'm black. Well, when you want to be, you're black when you need to be, right? That's what Moors do, right? They go with what you look like. And from there, you just have a whole narrative, right? So today's international Moor will not look black, but they will claim black because that's what the Indians are being called, black. So the absence of legislation, Congress is who has plenary authority. That's who they're talking about, Congress. So when they say the United States cease making treaties, they're really talking about Congress and the power over Indian commerce. That's Congress, y'all, because Congress has plenary authority. We read that, right? In federal Indian law, which Peter Dorico calls federal anti-Indian law, he says that Congress has plenary authority. They call it plenary, total and complete control over Indians. So how the hell am I a third sovereign when I'm being dominated by one of the three? They say we're a third sovereign. No, it's two sovereigns and one, well, actually one at this point, the federal government really, the states are like tissue paper to the feds right now. but three sovereigns. So when they say three, they try to say the federal government, the states, and Indians. But really, at this point, it's just one. That's how they got over on quote unquote white people. Okay. But they're orchestrating, they're setting it up so white people have just a little more power than blacks because really this is still how can we all get together and genocide the Indian, even though you don't know that's what you're doing? Well, you have to stop treaty making with them. You have to take a control over the states. You have to be able to make legislation that not even been congressionally legislated yet. So that's like the Supreme Court can make a judgment, and it becomes like precedent, even though Congress didn't, but the Supreme Court is just an arm of Congress, really. It's just an arm in the federal system, the Supreme Court. But again, Indians hear Supreme Court and they feel like they're going to get some Diana Ross and the Supreme Justice. No, you're not going to get a sweet love song. You're going to get, I will rip you, I will cut you, I will tear your heart out. That's what yes. You ain't going to get baby love. You're not going to stop in the name of love. And what you will get is where did our love go? That's good. But then again, you can't get that either because there was never no love to begin with. But that's the closest you'll get from the Supreme Court. Okay. Uh so then assume greater importance, okay, after 1871. So in other words, after we stopped making treaties with you and we just dominated you, it was much more important to dominate you since we stopped making treaties with you, and is now the main way that the national government or the federal government it exerts its sovereignty over in. So again, if you call me a third sovereignty, why is this one over Indians? Because they're getting everything that should be going to you is going to the nobility that owns the District of Columbia, which is not a state. This branch of the power over commerce has a broader reach than the other two, especially the power over commerce among the states. Unlike that power, which is limited in a number of ways in favor of state sovereignty, the Indian commerce power has long been regarded as a source of what? Absolute control. This writer is talking like Peter DeRico, absolute control over all manner of Indian affairs, not limited by any narrow definition of commerce or limits that the 10th Amendment may place on commerce among the states. So the states have a little more freedom, apparently from the 10th Amendment, but Indians are what? They are absolutely controlled by the federal government. That's why you don't want to be a federally recognized Indian, y'all. Because you might as well stay a Negro. But that goes for 501c3s as well. Because now they're regulating you like a straight up you know, corporation. And YouTube is a corporation that has all these restrictions because of what? Federal government regulating, quote unquote, regulating commerce. That's why. It's not that YouTube wants to limit us. They're being limited by their Lord and Master, just like any 501c3 will be limited by their Lord and Master. So Indians seeking to own land and be Indians again, you can't do it in the system. That's all Heru has been telling you for the last I don't know how many videos, or like over 100 now. But I would say the last few years, a little wait a minute, it's only been a few years. The last several months have been Get Out, ever since the Get Out video. And actually, that was only last year, 2023 was the Get Out video. Yep. But that's when I think it really came to me, Get Out. It was brewing, but then it came out in the exact words in the name of that video, Get Out. And that was only, I think that video was done in July of 2023. So I was only, let's see, 4 months after the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery is when I started saying get out. But it was after the repudiation. I started making videos in 2020, I think, or 21. So the repudiation came in 2023. And the Get Out video was in that same year, about August or July or August. So I wasn't too far behind, right? And now I've started sending out my notices. So I think it's good timing. I feel like it should take about a year, I guess, to really adjust to the repudiation. Even though I have to say at the time I don't was I saying the doctrine? Yes, I did. In that video, I said the doctrine of discovery has been denounced. It was in the Get Out video. I believe I said it in that video. I have to look. So this is why you can't be federally regulated, and this is why you can't be a 501c3. You can't be a federal Indian because they have domination over you. They're not giving that up. You have to stand up and say, I'm standing not under federal. Now we're going to your daddy, the Pope. And we going by what he said, and that's the type of Indian we're going to strive to be. The highest I could get with you is a slave. With your daddy who sent you here, but now said that what you're doing, he didn't intend for you to do. He's recognizing that I'm supposed to be in charge of my land. So that means just like anywhere else on earth, I have to get compensated, y'all. This was all about commerce, but Indians never got anything because their brand of commerce means I take your shit, rename you, and then I do everything I can to get rid of you and make you the lowest thing on your land. So no, Indian, you can't be a 501c3. You can't be one of the five civilized tribes. You can't be federally recognized. That's the last thing you should do. They make it like you arrived. Yeah, you arrived to Moo the Fool Land. If you think being federally recognized is the golden ticket. No, it's not. It's more slavery than African slavery. It's the worst kind because it's so damn insidious. It's so premeditated. It's so deceptive that you don't even know it's slavery. At least if they're, whatever they did with this quote unquote 20 some odd Indians 20 some odd Africans that came to Virginia, whatever they did to them, that it pales in compared to what they did to all the Indians in America that they call black. They can't even, they couldn't even call us African back then, y'all. They would call us everything: colored, Negro, mulatto, musty. Apparently, the word musty, but they never called us African, y'all. That happened later after they knew we were brainwashed and didn't know didn't know we were Indians at all. So that's what they do, y'all. They groom you, they lead you, and then they say, "Oh, he agrees." No, I've been deceived. by the deceiver. So Congress is taking absolute control. The federal system is taking absolute control over all Indian affairs, all manner of in everything you do is dominated. So it's almost like you might as well be black and African, because you're still dominated like a slave. Indians are supposed to own their land, get profit off their land, not have a middleman stealing from you. By any narrow definition of commerce or limits that the 10th Amendment may place on commerce among the states. So the states actually have limits. I'm sorry, but Congress has no limits in their domination over Indians. They can make up stuff that has not even been even legislated yet. That's how bad it is, y'all. They think making us slaves was how they solved the Indian problem. Them just having that's the only way that they can be here is if they can dominate us so they can get every profit that we could even dream of getting, right? The foundational concepts supporting federal power over Indians, here we go, y'all, were laid down in a trilogy of decisions. Now, this is what the Department of Environmental Protection hopefully will learn. And again, I'm not trying to punk them. I'm not trying to humiliate them. I'm not trying to showboat. This is my life. And it's been unjust up to this point. I've been treated unjustly. So no, this is not about, oh, look, I'm going to make fun of by making a video. No, all Indians are supposed to have this standing on their land. And I'm going to speak on it because that is my lifeline out of this. If I stay quiet, I learned that silence equals death. Is that what they say? Yeah, because it's the truth. Silence equals death. That's why I'm speaking. So if whoever is watching of these agencies, this is not to humiliate you. I'm just learning this law myself. I'm the one who's losing. You are gaining. So no, I'm the only one who has been humiliated here. The foundational concepts supporting federal power Indians, you have to get this. And then we're going to close this out because we have come full circle, y'all. There's the 3 cases that I quoted to a taxing agency. This is what they're going to come to, right? But then they're going to, as soon as they see that, they're going to see the repudiation in the doctrine of discovery that I sent them, the repudiation, right? So here we go. Now we've come full circle. Indians should know by now. These are the 3 cases. How many times do we have to read this or read about it? They have been repudiated, y'all. So again, the federal government can no longer use these cases against you. We have to start to stand outside of their jurisdiction, y'all. When we're in their jurisdiction, this is the kind of thing we get, complete domination. Let's read, Heru, let's read. The foundational concepts supporting federal power over Indians were laid down in a trilogy of decisions by Chief Justice John Marshall. In Johnson versus McIntosh, 1823, that's where the Indians couldn't self-title. In Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, that's where Georgia wanted to take part of Cherokee Nation land, and the Supreme Court said, go right ahead, baby, do you. And That was 1831. And Worcester versus Georgia, 1832. This is where it's not about land, it's about we just make all the decisions. So now some priest or preacher wants to preach in uh, Cherokee Nation. Georgia said he had to get a license. But did he have to get a license if he's not operating in Georgia? Well, the Supreme Court basically they are the ones that get to decide. This case is just about Big Daddy gets to decide what goes on in Indian land again. That's all. He's not taking your land this time, but he's making it clear that no, I'll decide if a preacher could come into Indian territory. So in this one, they actually allowed the guy to do that, but they overrode this. In other words, this last case is kind of tricky. What it's showing is that the federal government kicks the state out the way when it wants to, and it supports the state when it wants to. I'm sorry, the state, not the state. So altogether, these three cases are basically saying the federal government do whatever the hell it want to do when it feel like doing it. Okay? In Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, they appeased the Indians with some BS talking about give Georgia your land. We'll just give you some new land. But the thing is, how can I trust if you're taking away the land that I have? Why should I believe you're going to let me keep the land that you give me? Obviously, you're moving me around like a pawn on a chessboard, right? And then you're telling me something about you're going to feed me. Well, I got news for you. This is my food. Do you mean I'm feeding you? So that in that case, they'll supply you with food and human services in my own country, in my own ancestral land. You think you're providing me something. I had all that before you arrived. You ain't giving me nothing. You're stealing from me. All of this has been repudiated. I'm glad we got to it all. Indians, this is what I showed. This taxing agency that I'm dealing with. But so far, so good. You know, they wrote me a very cordial letter. I think it's very cordial what they wrote. They didn't say, oh, we're going to call the marshal and take your house. Oh, we're going to pull out the sewer. No, they said, let us review this. Fine, go right ahead. Because it's going to take you right to what we're reading right now. And I done told you it's been repudiated. So then what you going to do? Don't make up no shit because I'll know that you made it up. Do not make up some shit. Okay? We going by the Constitution today. And the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. That's all we going by. You cannot introduce some new bullshit, although I do think their system is versatile, is in that way where they can sort of kind of make up shit. But no, I know now. I know what my rights are. So I will know that they're making up something. They can't pull a rabbit out of a hat this time, y'all. The entire system has been, if these are the three cases the entire system is built upon, they've just been repudiated. Voided, y'all. Should we read it again? What we read earlier, the doctrine of discovery, how it has been voided. But let's finish reading this article first. The foundational concepts supporting federal power over Indians were laid down in a trilogy of decisions by Chief Justice John Marshall in Johnson versus McIntosh, 1823. Again, that's where Indians can't sell title. Only the federal government can, even if it's on Indian land or federal reservation. The federal government has power over you too, boo. Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. Cherokee Nation goes to the Supreme Court. Judge, Georgia's trying to take our federal reservation land that you gave us. Can you tell them to put an injunction? Can you put an injunction on them so they can't take it? In the Big Daddy in the court. No, let Georgia take the land and I'll give you some other land. Get it back. Court dismissed. Bang, bang. And Worcester versus Georgia. Just another example of how the federal government steps in and overrides the state and says, yeah, let the ministers go and preach. So the Supreme Court said, we want them to get preached to. The more indoctrinated they are, we got to allow for that. So go on. You don't need a license. Go on and convert them to Christianity, the same religion that got their asses in this hot water in the first place. Go boil them up some more. Court dismissed. Bang, bang. Y'all got to get out. So Marshall designated the Indians as domestic dependent nations. So this is what this judge used the Commerce Clause, y'all, and said that they are domestic dependent. But when you judge, that's not even in the Constitution. What's that? What's a domestic dependent? Something created out of the windmills of his Moorish Moroccan mind. Because for him to come up with this, he's led by the religion that the Moors created, right? Yes, the Moors created Christianity. Okay, I read that straight out of the book of Yaqub. I had to read it to my aunt earlier today. I'll probably read it before we close this video out. We read it before. The part that they say they wrote the Bible and the Quran. There was a black man that wrote. So he's saying the Islamic group created the Bible and the Quran. That's what they're telling us. It was the same group of priests, black priests that would have been known as Moors, right? So this Judge Marshall is basing his rulings that come against Indians. He's basing it on Moorish religion uh, in the doctrine of discovery, y'all. Okay, so Marshall designated the Indians as domestic dependent nations, something akin to wards. So now they're calling us wards of the federal government. Yeah, wards of the federal government, which also controlled the land they were on. So even on your reservation, the federal government is controlling you, but remaining a distinct people. Yeah, moo the fool people. Because whoever agrees to this got to be fooled. Got to be a fool, right, Sanchez? uh, with the right to rule themselves within the larger framework of federal law. No, this is BS, y'all. Free from interference from the states. So the states can't bother you, but the feds can. That like double, triple worse than the state. So they protect you from the states, but they're not protecting you from themselves. Over the years, there have been numerous changes in the direction of what have often been detrimental policies towards Indians. But the basic constitutional framework and assumptions laid down by Marshall, the John Marshall trilogy of cases, have remained, at least until recently, by the New Deal. Uh-oh. They tell me something I don't. Uh-oh. What's the New Deal? Let's make a deal? Okay. What's the New Deal? Because I want to know if it's some BS. By the New Deal, an attempt to give some meaningful recognition to Indian independence and self-governance began, but recent years have seen an increase of state power relative to that of both the Indian tribes and the power of Congress to regulate them, especially under Rehnquist court's federalism, what? Jurisprudence, which has asserted the power of the court over application of the Indian commerce power. What? In Seminole Tribe versus Florida, 1995. So this is not recent, y'all. He's saying recent. Some New Deal. Nah. The New Deal is the Pope repudiated all of this mess. That's as of 2023. So 1995, that's not recent enough. The court ruled that Congress's Indian Commerce Clause power does not extend to infringing the inherent sovereignty of the states. Wow. Ooh. So the states are saying your ruling over the Indians does not infringe on us, the states, by forcing them to negotiate in good faith with Indians over Indian gambling enterprises, an emerging area of great activity for Indian tribes that Congress had tried to structure in a balanced way. Yeah, right. This decision had far broader effects than merely on the regulation of Indian commerce, becoming a basis of the emerging 11th Amendment, inherent state sovereignty decisions of the court, which have also limited the reach of the power over commerce among the states and the Section 5 enforcement power of the 14th Amendment. Okay, so the first thing I want to know is, when was this article written? Uh-oh. They're written in 2024, because if they're, let's look up here. Is there a date up here? No, there isn't. Now I want to see the date of this article, because the bibliography is only as recent as 2003, so they're not including 2023, the denunciation of the doctrine of discovery. Now, this copyright doesn't mean that this article was written in 2024. It's just this website, I guess, you know. But okay. Now I grabbed this article on the 15th. Okay. Um what we're reading just now is dealing with the states. So the states are now stepping forward to say that they have say. They challenging the federal government. So this is something the states are doing. What I'm saying here is that this is what we Indians have to do to both the state and the federal. We got to let them know what time it is. Like the states are here trying to tell the federal government, no, we have a say. So they're saying the New Deal is an attempt to give meaningful recognition to Indian independence by recognizing the state's power. See, this is not Indian independence, it's just the states now standing up. But recent years have seen an increase of state power relative to that of both the Indian tribes and the power of Congress to regulate them. So now the states are stepping in and saying, wait a minute, we have a say. But what's going to happen is Indians are going to stand up and say, wait a minute, both of y'all, I have the highest say. This is my land y'all are on. Okay? So I'm glad we got to this article. I will quickly read what the Moorish Islamic book, Yaqub, Father of Mankind, says in the chapter titled How the Black Man Rules. We read this before. We, the original nation of earth, says Allah, the maker of everything, sun, moon, and stars, and the race called white race. Now, all throughout the book, they're claiming to have genetically created the white race, right? So that's what they're saying here. But they're mixing it up. They're saying Allah says. This is confusing, y'all. This is very much what chaos looks like, because let's read it again. We. So who's the we? The original nation of the earth. Okay. Says Allah. So now you're saying Allah is saying that you. Okay, so we, the original nation of the earth, says Allah, the maker of everything, sun, moon, and stars, and the race called white race. So they're conflicting themselves here, y'all, because they said they created the white race, but now it sounds like they're saying that God, this reads weird, but the bottom line is it's saying we, the original nation of earth, are the writers of the Bible and the Quran. So they're trying to say that it was black, quote unquote, that created the Bible and the Quran, and they are correct. So what I'm saying is the doctrine of discovery is based on the Bible that the Catholic Church put together. So they wrote the Bible, but the Bible was constructed by the Catholic Church. It's the Catholic Church that created what became the 66 books, because what they're saying is there were other books, but the Catholic Church did something where they chose the 66 books. So the doctrine of discovery comes from the Catholic Church, who took a Bible that they put together and came up with the doctrine of discovery. So now the doctrine of discovery has to be repudiated because it does not stand the light of truth that says we're all created by God, basically, right? That's one of the things that they say that they actually don't believe, right? So I have God-given rights, and the doctrine of discovery said, no, if you're a Christian, if you're not a Christian, you don't have God-given rights. But here's the thing with that, y'all. As we said before, how can I go against a God that I never knew, nor did my ancestors know? So you're condemning me with your God for a God that I am now only meeting when you arrive, and as soon as you arrive, you're pillaging and stealing because you see that I'm not a Christian. So instead of coming at me and teaching me about your God, you came and stole from me in the name of your God and said that I must follow him as well. So Indians, the reason why the doctrine of discovery was repudiated, because it was unjust from the beginning. We still have to mind our P's and Q's because a lot of the wording in the repudiation are commercial terms. What Indians have to do is say that, first of all, our ancestral land is not property. It's our ancestral land. And what you're giving us, you're not actually giving it to us. You're just acknowledging that I have God-given rights. So you don't give me liberty. You recognize my freedom apart from yours. You don't give me freedom. You don't give me liberty. Liberty is not the word that I'm getting from God. What I'm getting from God is freedom. Free man of the land. And as well is my land. It's mine's free. So although we can certainly appreciate what Pope Francis has done, this is something he had to do because it would reflect ill on the church when the real creator appears. You see what I'm saying, y'all? What I'm trying to say is this is not something that was done out of love of the individuals that did it in the first place. It's called something is happening and I have to cover my ass. So I'm going to write this document because I have to. It's the right thing to do. It's the only way I can be pardoned for my wrongs. But if I write this document and Indians don't act on it, my hands are washed clean and they are now condemning themselves to my system. So Indians who want to create states, I'm going to say that is not what Indians should do. You don't create more of what your colonizer brought you when he conquered you. And Indians will say, but were we conquered? I would say you can argue that physically we weren't conquered, but mentally, yes, we were conquered. There is no doubt. So I remember I would be confused when Indians say, we never got defeated. They never beat us, or we never got conquered. Okay, what you're talking about is physically, we're still here. Okay, right. Mentally, however, we were more defeated than anything Mike Tyson ever did, Cassius Clay or Muhammad Ali ever did, whatever that other great boxer's name that James Earl Jones played. We were utterly defeated mentally and spiritually, which is worse than physically. When they defeat you mentally, they don't have to worry about your body. You'll take care of that. When they send drugs to your community and guns and so forth, because they have defeated you spiritually and mentally. So when we say we weren't defeated, well, how do you mean? In what way were we, quote unquote, not defeated? Because we have Indians still now today who will never give up on their Jesus. They are spiritually, there's got to be a stronger word than defeated. They just, it's all they know. And they're not willing to step away from the religion. They still run to the Bible for clues. Well, all you're going to get is a clue because you're not going to get the truth if you're an Indian. What you're going to get is conquered. Now, again, when I speak like this, it is not to criticize the people that follow these religions because as we all know, we all know wonderful people who are not Indians and who are in these religions. But what I'm saying is when it comes to quote unquote black people, we just read that the Moors, the Islamic, they're men and they're black and they're Islamic. So what does that make them? Moors, right? Because that's what Moors were. They were black Muslims. So we just read in their book where they say they wrote the Bible and the Quran. So these are the people we're talking about. We're not talking about Caucasian Jews. We're talking about the faction of these religions that are black, quote unquote, and that are trying to run game on other blacks. Now, these black men that said they wrote the Bible and the Quran, that vindicates Caucasian Jews. I'm going to say it again. If it was a black man who's admitting that it was black people that wrote the Bible and the Quran, right there, that tells you that Caucasian Jews have nothing to do with what's happening to quote unquote black people. I know a lot of Indians hate to hear that. You're going to hear it from me. I'm sorry. I don't go to the representative. I go to the CEO. If I read in an Islamic book that so many men in America are learning about and believing, so then you know that it was you, not the white Jew, that your religion hypocritically calls the devil. It wasn't him that did this, was it? If he didn't write it and you wrote it, but you gave it to him and told him that he wrote it, just like you're telling me that I wrote it now. You're sowing confusion, you're sowing chaos. I don't know that a Caucasian Jew has ever heard that a black man wrote their Bible, who was a Muslim, no less. Apparently, because that's what these are Muslims speaking. They're the custodians of history, right? So they're holding on to the stories and letting us know what they want us to know, depending on who we are. The Muslims in the Middle East are not getting this version of Islam. So why are American Indians getting it? Because the Moors are coming for you, but they have to sweet talk you because you look like them. They got to sweet talk you. They got to say, we were ruled the world back in the day before we got defeated by Spain, but you rock with us and you'll be seen not like a slave, but as a ruler. Well, what difference will it make if I'm still being dominated on my own land? So now I have a new image because the Moors showed up. Now I can say, oh, once upon a time, I was a great, mighty conqueror. Everyone is going to look at you, Black Moo the Fool, and say, yeah, so what happened? And that's when you're going, and that's when your Moor is going to tell them all how great Africa was at once upon a time. Y'all, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. These Moors are so in the doctrine of discovery being repudiated. Do you know the Moors have been canceled? Know that all their bullshit is canceled as well? Well, they're the root of the bullshit. But yeah, this cancels out all their little wicked little deeds, y'all. Their little evil plan to rule the world. This is all they're interested in, y'all. Indians, again, they sweet talk you. They go to other places and dominate those people because they believe that they saying that they genetically, it was their black forefathers who genetically brought them. So they're just dominating that. They'll tell them that a different version of Islam than they're telling American Indians. Now, they won't tell these Arabs that a black man created you, will they? They reserve that for Indians because they know who we are, y'all. Who are we? We predate them. Before they started calling themselves Moors or before they got kicked out to Africa, they were here cooking up how the priesthood, they were cooking up how they're going to try to dominate the world. There's only one problem, these damn Indians. But we're going to go out in the world and tell the world that everything began in Africa, so we have to get rid of these damn Indians. So again, you got to ask what every Indian has to ask themselves while you have a Moor in your face lying to you. You got to ask them, well, how come your Moorish forefathers lied about America and said that everything began in Africa, where you telling me now you're indigenous like I am, or you're American Indian like I am? You're a damn liar. You're a damn to hell liar. Why don't you stop lying? Do you even have a soul? You lie so much. Is it possible for you to even have a soul? Do you know what you're saying? Let's go approach this in another way. Do you understand? Do you have any clue what your doctrines are saying about you? Do you have any clue? You're so bipolar that you slip into different personas and you don't even see when you transition. Do you realize that up to now, you were African, but now you have to say you're American? Do you see that? because you need to see it. You're not pulling Indians into Africa, yo. We see how that goes for us, right? We don't get associated with you Negroes. And you know we don't. As much as you say that I am you and you are me, you know damn well I have not been treated like you because you were the one that were going out and dominating everybody behind the scenes. So if I were you, that means I was terrorizing myself. Give me a damn break, you. Mm. Oh boy. Well, sometimes when my mother would get so mad, she couldn't even regular curse words was not good. She tried to create new ones. She was so angry sometimes. So I love my mother, y'all, but there were times when she was so angry, she would trip up because she couldn't think of the regular curse words wasn't good enough. And that's how I feel right now. I don't there you gotta create a new category because the other ones they just don't they're not strong enough to express what Moors are trying to do and how dastardly that is, how deceptive it is. So they're saying basically the Bible and the Quran come from one source. Now, the Bible consists of the Old Testament and the New Testament. So something you created is the source of strife among men. Something it should have been a unifying factor, but all it does is divide until the Moors decide if we should act as one. But they keep you divided. Why? Because in order to take over your land, they have to have you at odds with each other. So you don't notice that you're no longer a man and woman of the land, but you become a object in commerce. And we know that the Moors were all about commerce. So they figured out how to use commerce to steal the property of other people. It's very simple. Just say that they owe you this incredible national debt. And behind the scenes, you're assuming control of their land. Now they're there and they think they have own land or they own their houses, but they don't own their houses and they don't own their cars. Because if they look on their title, the title they have, it calls them a tenant. This is how the national debt plays out. You don't own anything, you're just occupying space on your landlord's land. Who's your landlord? Some nobility somewhere in the UK, I would say. But who's above even that? That would be the Pope of the Roman Catholic Church, who has just said it's a wrap. He only did this in 2023. Now they're telling us that 2025 is going to be this horrible time. For who? Indians who have decided they want to remain slaves. But the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. How could this be? How could times be so hard or so bad for Indians who are getting out? Indians, you better get out. We got stop and frisk coming. We have talk of all kinds of everything is fear mongering. But the best thing that could ever happen to Indians is when the leader of the church that came here and sent its nobility to dominate you, when that leader says we were wrong, y'all have to act. You can't just sit there. You can't just sit there. You have to speak up. You have to speak up. It has to be reflected in your paperwork. Now, the big argument when I first, got into the Indian community or knew of the Indian community was you can't do no paperwork. And I remember, like, uh-oh. But here's the thing. If it's your paperwork, you must do it. You can do your own paperwork as a sovereign. Sovereigns have the power to write their laws. Okay? At the very least, they have a right to state what law that they stand on as a sovereign. So you do it as an individual first, but then when Indians start to have a second awakening, because the first one is kind of iffy, y'all. I think it's called One Eye Woke. When all three eyes are open, how about that? Then we can start to actually get somewhere. But we can't be involved with Indians who want to just keep recreating what was already here before, like federal tribes and 501c3s. No. You have to be a whole brand new Indian, right? Indian in the time of the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. Some tribes were created before the doctrine of discovery were repudiated. Well, we have to give them a pass. They didn't have this greater option before. So tribes that were created, say now in 2020 or 2021 or 2022, you didn't have the luxury of the doctrine of discovery being repudiated. Now that you do, you can redo everything you have done if you want to. You have to want to. On that note, I think we have to end here, although I had some other things planned because I know this is a long video and I know attention spans are, even mine is not that long. So I thank you. Thank you so much for the kind words in the comment section. Thank you for, just thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. It is very much appreciated. Till next time, be and stay highly favored.